been? Positive, negative, in your life? And how do you meet these forms and ritual now in your life? And I recognize that some people will have had difficult experiences, and other people, and very wounding experiences, maybe in organized religions, and others will not have. So we include all that. But before I go on, there's one form I forgot. Come closer, Susan, so you can hear better. Please come as close as you want. What I forgot is the before lecture chant. That's one of our forms. And it's, yeah, just bring Susan closer so she can hear better. Thank you. Yes. So we'll do the before lecture chant. An unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. That's a wonderful ritual we have. It turns the whole thing over to something much wider. Not about me, not about you. It's all of us. It's wider and larger. Well, so my experience growing up with religious forms and spiritual forms has been positive, very positive. Many of you know that I grew up my father was an Episcopal priest, and he decided to go into the priesthood at about the time that I was conceived somehow. So all the energy in my whole life from my parents has been about him becoming a priest, and then his work as a priest, and our lives as the family of the priest, the minister in the Episcopal Church in the towns we lived. And that, that colored everything. I thought it was weird that kids had, like my dad had to wear a collar, and I thought it was weird that kids had parents who didn't wear a collar. But my first memories really of it are from about when I was 3, when we moved to the first town where my dad had his first church, in a small town in Connecticut. And for me, it was so comfortable to be there, because we always lived next to the church. And with the church, there's buildings like here, there's a parish hall, and my siblings and I would just go over and play there. And we could play in the church if we wanted. It wasn't locked. So there wasn't a mystique about it, or like, oh, you got to be super good or perfect or right or any of that stuff. It was like comfort. It was like home. It was like my family, and it was in my bones. So I bring that now. And I also bring somewhat of a family lineage, because my great grandfather, my mom's grandfather, was a Methodist minister. So I think maybe it runs in our family, in our genes, to want to be involved with religious and spiritual rituals and forms and practice. Like it's a need, like air, have to have it. So in just living there, in the church and next to it, it was safe and comfortable, but there was also a sense of reverence. When we did go into the church building, there was reverence. It was, when it was a service, we were to be in there. We weren't scolded or anything, but we were to behave. We knew we were to be quiet, right? But I was always given crayons. So I just colored all over the bulletin and everything, and apparently one time I ended up, when I was 3, in the service, and my mom must have let me dress myself, because I didn't manage to get underwear on. And so I leaned over and, well, the whole thing was available to the world. But it's okay. It was okay. So I just want to really stress that how I experience forms now, and religious and spiritual forms, is with a lot of reverence, but a lot of joy and forgiveness, and not any need to be perfect. I did experience people outside of our family, and the community at large, expecting the minister's family to be like perfect or good or all this. And that was very detrimental. But it wasn't coming from within. It wasn't coming from my own parents or family. And that makes a big difference. And it helped me to realize at a young age the projections that can happen on people who are seen as taking on a religious role. Projections that really, you're just a human being. We're all humans practicing together, doing the rituals together as best we can. My dad was good at holding everything lightly. So when I was a little girl, I liked my dad to make a fish face for me. So he would roll his eyes up and make a fish face. So when I was 3, and subsequently all the time after, at the end of the church service, everybody's quiet, right? They're so pious, and they're there, and they're very good, and they're waiting for the candles to be put out before they get up. And it's totally quiet. And Dad is in the back of the church by this time. So I would always look back, and he would roll his eyes up and make a fish face for me. And we did that up through my whole life until when he died. If I was home visiting, I'd look at him at the end of a service and he'd make a fish face. That helped me, though. It helped me to see that we give the forms all our energy and really try to do them, but we hold it lightly too, and with joy. And in my family, in some maybe religious traditions, you might find hypocrisy, or it might seem like the whole thing is kind of empty, just words that were said, but not really a part of life. But that wasn't the case for me. When I was young, in the mid-50s and later, we lived by the church, and we had big houses, a big old New England house, and people came and lived with us. We had people who were refugees after the war. They'd been displaced persons. We had people who had substance abuse problems. They'd come and live with us. Kids who were just sort of abandoned. We just had a lot of different people live with us at different times, and I remember them all. I was just a little girl, but it impacted me to know that a spiritual life isn't divorced from all the pain and suffering in the world. And that's really important. And I think that's important to us in our practice, is our bodhisattva practice and development of compassion. That's what we're about. One time, my brother was 16, and he wanted the car keys. Dad had promised him the car keys, but Dad had gone in to do a church service, and forgot to give Steve the car keys. So my brother brought my little dachshund dog into the sacristy, and then led her into the sanctuary where my dad was, by the altar. And the dog loved my dad, so of course went straight to Dad. And then Dad noticed it. He didn't get flustered. And this is important for us too. He just picked up the dog, walked her over to my brother, who was just on the other side of the door, and gave my brother back the dog along with the car keys. And then Dad went back and continued the service. He didn't have to be flustered, though, because what I learned from that is that the whole of our lives are part of the ritual. Like if there's some problem or something, or like I messed up and forgot to do the opening chant, right? So what? Just go back and pick it up. No big deal. Just take the dog out, carry on. And Norman does this, and you've probably seen Chris do it, where maybe she forgets, you forget to put down your bowing mat. Norman did it recently at a priest ordination last month or in November. And it was all over and we were all ready to process out and everything. And Norman forgot his bowing mat. It was back up where he'd been sitting. So he had to get up, go back, and he just did. He just went and got it and then came back, laid it out, and we carried on. Nobody worried about it. So what if there was a glitch? It's okay because the intention was there to hold. And I think that's what's important about our rituals is our intention and our energy, that we give it the best we have. But we don't have to beat ourselves up if it's not perfect. And when we start to think more, like in the next week or so, about ringing bells and this and that, it's really important to remember that. Of course, there's going to be mistakes in ringing bells and in doing the forms, but it's your intention and your energy that are important. So I was thinking about, well, how does religious practice and ritual and forms support me? How has it and how does it? And maybe all of us. So I want you to think about that question too, as I'm speaking. How do our forms and our practice support you in your life, if they do? I presume they do in some degree, or you wouldn't be sitting here. For me, it's just that it's so embodied, as Chris talked about. This is an embodied practice. It's beyond our thinking minds. It's just, we do it. And it's light. We have light, and well, if we had incense, we'd have smells, and we have music in our chanting and our bells. It's all the senses are involved, which is like in our regular walking around life, right? Your senses are involved, you're embodied. So it expands out into our lives. I spoke about reverence already. For me, it's reverence is about, like when we bow, it's like giving over to something larger. It might seem like we're bowing to an outer Buddha, but it turns out that's our inner Buddha, that's Buddha nature. And it turns out that it's not just outer and inner, it's all among us. All of our Buddha nature, we're all together in the Sangha. We're bowing, we're chanting, and are supported. So for me, I just feel it ongoingly supporting, like the bones. I can count on our rituals. If I'm needing, maybe somewhere else in the country, if I wanted to go to an Episcopal church, because Episcopal churches like Zen have the ritual, I can go in and it will be similar to what I'm used to anywhere in the country. And similarly, we can go into any Zen center that's Soto Zen, that's in our lineage, and the ritual will be substantially the same. If you go to Green Gulch, there's going to be a little more of this and that, a few more bells and sounds and different, a few more bows maybe, but mostly you'll recognize it and you can feel at home. And if you're in need, if you're traveling and you're in need, you can go to a Zendo if there's one around, and you can feel held. And also, I think that having forms and rituals that are structured, that do have sort of a way to do it, gives us support. I know it gives me support in times of grief, suffering. If there's been a death in the family, or I'm really upset about something, or, if you get a bad diagnosis, or if your friend's pissed off at you, or whatever it is, you can still be in this Zendo, in the ritual, And you can be silent. You don't have to talk. You can just by the ritual, and the ritual will hold and the suffering. It doesn't ask you to get rid of your pain, but it holds us in the pain. There's one other thing I forgot that's very helpful. You know, sometimes, like I know in Christian churches, sometimes or they don't give very good talks or sermons. Maybe, you know, some are better than others, and the same with Zen, Zoom, or they have good aspects, maybe they are good at the other. It doesn't matter so much because the forms are maintained throughout. So if you have a minister who's not so great, well, the ritual that happens that transforms your spirit still going on. That doesn't get messed up. And it's the same with Zen forms. It doesn't get messed up, and it's still accessible to you.
No sound out here.
We can't hear you.
No, no, they can't hear. Hold your tongue. No. Yes. Yeah, you can hear. Okay. Well, I was going to tell a very short story about man.
Okay, now let's try. Can you hear me?
Can you hear? Yeah,
All right,
okay. Well, we'll see how long it goes.
Is it recording?
yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry, the church internet's in and out. Well, let me just share just a couple things and then we're gonna get going to a discussion. I wanted to read to you though, a piece from our dear friend Ellen, right? Ellen, who wrote this piece, I'm only gonna read a portion in in our Dharma Heart Zen newsletter, and it's entitled Yes. And she wrote it about her practice as Roger was dying. And it's about how she discovered daily rituals and little forms for herself that really support her, which is so important for us to do. And her words are so eloquent. I just want to read them to you. She says, Zen makes literally anything I do a spiritual practice. And Zen practice allows me to mindfully do whatever is in front of me. So instead of feeling that there was something really important and probably more fun that I could be doing than chopping a stupid onion, for example, I found myself say, yes, here I am. Chopping this onion is exactly what I choose to do. I found that acceptance of and careful attention to menial tasks opened up my life to more joy and less suffering. I learned to welcome everyday responsibilities as calisthenics to strengthen my Zen practice. Ritual. There were so many things I had to do every day to keep Roger comfortable and alive. I was fearful that I would forget to do some of these things, and it made me anxious. Zen practice taught me that I could create rituals, something I am normally not drawn to honor and be mindful while doing these mundane tasks. For example, when he was taking chemo drugs, I set up a lovely bowl for the pills on a beautiful cloth with a candle and a vase of flowers. Every night at a specific time, we would stand together in front of this altar and he would take his pills. We were saying yes to this part of our day. So I'm wondering if that I was just so touched by her writing, for one thing, and her experience and making it a ritual, and that arose out of her Zen practice. So I think about, do you make rituals that help you, that sort of arise perhaps out of your Zen practice? Do you have your own rituals? I have some. Like before a serious meeting with somebody, I usually say an internal prayer and I call upon Kuan Yin and Jizo to be present and to help me really listen. And I affirm that in fact, Kuan Yin and Jizo are present within me and that I will be able to listen. And I do it when I'm going to perform music too, because I think it's all about me, right? When I'm performing, but it's not. So I just offer it over and ask that whatever is played be of help and benefit to everybody. Or before a meal, saying a blessing. Or I bow to my plants. I bet some of you do. Bow to your garden or to your bees or whatever. These rituals of reverence that, whether you were drawn to them as a child or not, you have inside you, I think, that innate desire. I think almost all of us has some innate desire to enact rituals that call in what is larger, deeper, wider than just our discursive minds. Finally, I want to say our ritual of Zazen is also a ritual. When we come, we sit down, bow to the cushions and sit. And when we get up, the ritual doesn't end. Zazen continues with us in our daily life. It actually has no beginning or ending. So now we're going to break into small groups. And what about, can we do 3 to a group? It looks like a 3, 2, what shall we do? 2 or 3? Gretchen?
Well, there's 5, so.
Well, we'll have a group of 2 and a group of, I think you'll have a group of, yeah, 2 groups of 3, it looks like. So we'll have groups of 3 give them 15 minutes. Is that okay? We can do that
Yeah, let me get going on that.
here. And the questions, let me give them their questions. What has been your experience or relationship with ritual and forms? You can think about that. Or have you created any of your own that support you in your life? Or have you reclaimed any that were originally negative? I didn't get to talk about that too much because we lost time, but sometimes we have to reclaim old things from our upbringing and reclaim that for ourselves. Have you done that? So any of those questions or anything else that just rises into your awareness to speak about with your partners. And we'll come back. We'll give them